The sun had barely lifted over Maplewood Estates when Karen Delaney was already on patrol. She wasn't an HOA president, not officially. But ask anyone in the neighborhood, and they tell you Karen was the HOA. She prowled the streets with a clipboard in hand, jotting down violations that ranged from mismatched flower pots to garage doors left open for more than 10 minutes. To Karen, Maplewood wasn't just a subdivision. It was a kingdom, and she was its queen. Her latest irritation wasn't chipped paint or weeds. It was a neighbor named Maya Alvarez. Maya had moved into a small, tidy townhouse at the end of the cul-de-sac just over a year ago. She was in her third trimester now, her rounded belly a constant reminder that life for her was about to change in the most permanent way. She kept to herself, worked long shifts as a cashier at Fairway Grocery, and didn't so much as hang a wreath without checking the HOA's seasonal decor guidelines. Yet somehow, she landed on Karen's radar. It began a few weeks earlier when Karen claimed Maya ignored her at the mailbox. In truth, Maya had been juggling 2 heavy grocery bags and her phone, which was buzzing with a call from her doctor. She'd smiled in passing, but apparently, that wasn't good enough. Karen didn't forget slights, real or imagined. By late morning that day, Maya was already behind schedule at work. Fairway Grocery had been slammed with a delivery truck running 2 hours late, and she'd been on her feet since the minute she clocked in. The air smelled faintly of ripe bananas and lemon-scented floor cleaner. Her swollen ankles ached, but she kept her posture straight, scanning items with the rhythm of someone who had learned how to push through discomfort without complaint. Across town, Karen was brewing a different kind of energy. She had spent the morning in her kitchen, sipping coffee and scrolling through the HOA bylaws for fun, highlighting passages she thought could apply to Maya. She had convinced herself that people like Maya, inconsiderate, unneighborly people, eroded the character of Maplewood Estates. Karen believed rules weren't just guidelines, they were moral tests. And she was the only one willing to enforce them. That afternoon, a minor grocery run brought their worlds back together. Karen's pantry was missing one thing, imported biscotti, and she decided to make a quick trip to Fairway. She had no reason to believe Maya would be working, but when she spotted her at Register 4, it was as if the universe had delivered a stage for her grievances. Karen approached the checkout lane just as Maya was bagging produce for an elderly customer. Maya caught her in her peripheral vision, but she didn't interrupt the interaction she was in the middle of. She smiled politely, focusing on the task at hand. For most people, that moment would have passed without incident. But for Karen, it was proof of Maya's attitude problem. She didn't speak up immediately. Instead, she waited, arms crossed, a faint smirk curling at the corner of her mouth as if preparing to savor a small act of revenge. The line inched forward, and Maya's coworker at the next register gave her an apologetic glance. He'd seen Karen before. Her complaints had been the subject of more than one awkward meeting in the store manager's office. When Maya finally turned to her, her voice was calm. "Hi there, how are you today?" Karen's reply was clipped. "I was standing here for 5 minutes. You didn't even acknowledge me. Do you think that's acceptable?" Maya blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I was helping another customer." "I don't want your excuses," Karen snapped, tossing her biscotti onto the conveyor belt. "If you can't give basic respect, maybe you shouldn't be working here." Maya swallowed the rising sting in her throat and continued scanning the item. The elderly man who had just been served lingered nearby, frowning at the tone Karen used. Karen leaned forward, lowering her voice, but sharpening it like a blade. "People like you ruin communities. Always too busy to greet someone properly. It's disgusting." Maya didn't answer, focusing instead on the transaction, her hands steady even as her pulse quickened. Karen left without another word, biscotti in hand, but not before scribbling something on the back of a receipt, a note she intended for the store manager. By the time Maya returned home that night, the unease had settled into her bones. She didn't know it yet, but Karen had already emailed the HOA board, attaching a complaint about her behavior in public spaces and suggesting a formal review of her membership in the neighborhood association. The wheels were in motion. And for Karen Delaney, this was only the beginning. By Saturday morning, Fairway Grocery was a symphony of noise, beeping registers, the clink of carts, murmured conversations in the produce section. Maya had barely clocked in when her manager handed her the register key and a terse reminder. "We're short-staffed today. Hold the line together." She pulled her long hair into a ponytail, straightened her name badge, and stepped to register 4. Her belly pressed gently against the counter, an unspoken reminder that her energy had to last another 8 hours. Still, she smiled at each customer, letting the rhythm of scanning and bagging settle her mind. The line was steady when the doors slid open with a mechanical hiss, and Karen Delaney walked in. Her eyes swept the store as if conducting an inspection, sharp and calculating. The imported biscotti she sought rested neatly in the international foods aisle, but that wasn't her primary focus. She spotted Maya instantly. Karen's stride toward register 4 was deliberate. The set of her shoulders telegraphed confrontation long before she reached the lane. Maya was midway through helping a mother wrangle 3 impatient children, the conveyor belt loaded with cereal, fruit, and milk. She didn't see Karen at first, but when she did, she offered a quick nod and a patient smile, continuing to finish the order. Karen stood in place, tapping her nails against the cart handle, her expression hardening with each passing second. To her, this was déjà vu, another instance of being ignored by the same neighbor. By the time Maya finished bagging the last carton of milk, Karen had decided this was going to be a lesson. Finally, Karen said, stepping forward and setting her biscotti down with a thud. "Do you always make people wait this long before even acknowledging them?" Maya took a steady breath. "I'm sorry for the wait, ma'am. I had to finish with the customer ahead of you." "That's not an apology. That's an excuse," Karen interrupted, her voice rising enough to draw glances from the other lanes. "Do you even understand customer service?" The mother with the 3 children lingered nearby, frowning. 2 teenagers in line behind Karen exchanged a knowing look. They'd both seen Karen around the neighborhood, handing out unsolicited compliance reminders about lawn height. Maya kept her voice level. "I do my best to help each person in the order they arrive. I didn't mean to offend you." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Oh, you offended me all right. And you've done it before. You think you can just brush people off? People like you ruin the character of a community." The word stung more than Maya wanted to admit. She focused on scanning the biscotti, willing herself not to react. Karen wasn't finished. She turned her head slightly, projecting her voice toward the end of the lane. "Is your manager here? Because I'm not leaving until I see them. This employee should not be working here if she can't treat customers with basic respect." A young man near the candy racks slipped his phone from his pocket, angling it discreetly toward the scene. The recording caught every word, every sharp inflection in Karen's voice. Maya's manager, Brian, emerged from the back. "Is there a problem?" "Yes, there's a problem," Karen snapped before Maya could answer. "This girl ignored me. Twice now. She needs to be disciplined or removed from her position. I won't be shopping here until that happens." Brian glanced at Maya. "Maya, is that true?" Maya met his eyes, steady. "I greeted her as soon as I could. I was still helping another customer when she arrived." Brian nodded slightly, but Karen scoffed. "So, you're just going to take her word for it? No wonder this place is going downhill." Brian offered Karen a corporate smooth smile. "I'm sorry you feel that way, ma'am. We value all our customers, but my cashier was following policy." Karen stared at him as if he'd spoken a foreign language. "Then I'll be taking this higher. I know the corporate office. And I'll be talking to the HOA about the kind of people we let into our community." With that, she snatched her biscotti and stormed toward the exit, heels clicking sharply against the tile. The young man with the phone stopped recording, slipping it back into his pocket. "Don't worry," he murmured to Maya on his way out. "People like her get what's coming." Maya exhaled, her shoulders tight. She had no idea that video would be online within hours, and that it would ignite a storm neither she nor Karen could contain. By Sunday morning, the clip had traveled farther than anyone in Maplewood Estates could have imagined. It started on a neighborhood Facebook group, posted by the young man who'd filmed it. Within hours, it had been shared to a local community forum, then swept up by a viral public freakouts page. The caption was brutal. HOA Karen loses it at pregnant cashier for not greeting her fast enough. The video left little room for interpretation. Karen's sharp tone, her condescension, the moment she threatened to take it higher, all immortalized for thousands to watch, rewatch, and comment on. The comments poured in. How do people like this sleep at night? Pregnant, working retail, and still has to deal with this nonsense? Yikes. Imagine living in her neighborhood. Maya didn't read them at first. She'd gone to bed the night before drained, only to wake up to text messages from coworkers urging her to check social media. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Some messages were supportive. Others were from strangers thanking her for keeping her composure. Brian, her manager, pulled her aside. Corporate saw the video, he said, voice low. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. If anything, they're proud of how you handled it. Maya nodded, relief mingling with a strange anxiety. Public sympathy was comforting, but Karen was still her neighbor. And neighbors had a way of making life miserable when they felt cornered. Across the cul-de-sac, Karen was fuming. She'd seen the video and the comments, and she was convinced it was all a conspiracy to smear her good name. She called the Facebook post defamatory, the video taken out of context. She didn't hide. Instead, she doubled down, arriving at the HOA board meeting that Monday night with a stack of papers. The first was a formal complaint against Maya, citing unneighborly conduct in public settings. The second was a proposal to amend the HOA bylaws to allow behavioral reviews of residents. This is about standards, Karen told the room, her voice ringing against the community center's pale walls. If we let this kind of attitude slide, Maplewood will lose its character. People like her, she gestured vaguely, bring everyone down.
But something was different this time.
Usually, Karen's speeches drew nods of approval from at least half the board. Tonight, the air was thick with discomfort. Sam Patel, a board member who'd lived in Maplewood for 15 years, cleared his throat. Karen, with all due respect, that video doesn't show her doing anything wrong. It shows you yelling at a pregnant woman in public. And now, half the neighborhood's inbox is full of angry emails from people outside the community. A ripple of murmurs passed through the room. Karen's jaw tightened. I was enforcing respect. From who? Another board member, Elise, asked. She was at work, helping another customer. That's not disrespect. That's doing her job. For a moment, Karen's composure cracked. She realized the room wasn't hers anymore. 2 days later, Maya found a note slipped under her door. In neat, looping cursive, it read, "Enjoy your little internet fame.
It won't last.
Neither will you in this neighborhood." No signature, but there was no doubt in her mind who had written it. She considered reporting it, but something in her resisted. Karen thrived on intimidation. Giving her the satisfaction of a reaction felt like surrender. Still, Maya began double-checking her locks at night. Meanwhile, the video continued to snowball. A local news station requested an interview. National blogs picked it up, framing it as HOA tyrant versus the pregnant worker. It was no longer a neighborhood squabble. It had become a story people everywhere were projecting their own frustrations onto. Neighbors who had once tiptoed around Karen began speaking more openly. They swapped stories. A family fined for leaving a kiddie pool out overnight. A retired couple reprimanded for improperly aligned holiday lights. The more they talked, the more they realized Karen's grip on the HOA was built on fear, not respect. By the following HOA meeting, the board had quietly added a closed session to the agenda. Karen arrived expecting to push her behavioral review proposal. Instead, she was met with a vote, one to strip her of her unofficial enforcement role and limit her ability to issue citations without board approval. The motion passed. Karen's face stayed frozen in a tight smile, but her eyes betrayed her. Flat, simmering, calculating. She wasn't finished. The first chill of autumn had crept into Maplewood Estates, crisp air swirling with the scent of burning leaves. For most residents, it was a season of quiet routines, raking lawns, swapping porch decor, sipping coffee on back patios. But for Karen Delaney, the neighborhood had become a battlefield. Since being stripped of her unofficial enforcement role, she'd been seen more often pacing her driveway than walking the streets. Gone was the clipboard. In its place was something sharper, a personal vendetta. Her target remained the same, Maya Alvarez. One Wednesday evening, just after dusk, Maya returned from her shift at Fairway. The parking space in front of her townhouse was dim under the lone streetlight. She stepped out of her car, grocery bag in one hand, purse in the other. That's when she saw movement in the shadows by her porch.
Karen.
She was crouched near Maya's front step, her phone flashlight trained on the base of the railing. When she noticed Maya watching, she straightened slowly, lips curling into a thin smile. "Just checking for property damage," Karen said, as if her presence were routine. "This is my property," Maya replied, her voice tight. "You have no right to be here." Karen's tone turned saccharine. "Oh, I have every right to protect this neighborhood from people who don't belong." Maya's grip tightened on her grocery bag. "Leave." Instead, Karen took a step forward. "If you think that little internet stunt makes you untouchable, you're wrong. You've embarrassed this community. You've embarrassed me. And people like you." "People like me what?" Maya cut in, her voice no longer steady. Karen leaned in, lowering her voice to a hiss. "Don't last long here." The confrontation might have escalated further if a porch light across the street hadn't flicked on. Sam Patel, the HOA board member who had publicly challenged Karen, stepped outside. "Everything okay over there?" Karen straightened, the false smile snapping back into place. "Just a friendly check-in," she called. But Maya's patience had finally run out. She set her grocery bag down, pulled out her phone and dialed. "Yes," she said clearly into the receiver. "I need to report a trespasser." Karen froze. "You wouldn't." The flashing red and blue lights arrived within minutes. Two officers stepped out, their presence casting long shadows against the row of townhouses. Maya explained what had happened, her voice steady despite the adrenaline buzzing in her veins. Sam corroborated her account from across the street. Karen tried to interject, spinning a story about neighborhood inspections and safety checks, but the officers didn't look convinced. "Ma'am," one of them said, "this isn't your property. The HOA doesn't give you the right to enter without permission. You've been asked to leave, and you refused." "That's not how this works," Karen snapped. "I run this community." The words hung in the cool air, sounding less like authority and more like delusion. The officers exchanged a glance before one stepped forward. "Turn around, ma'am." Karen's eyes went wide. "You're arresting me?" "For protecting the neighborhood. For trespassing and harassment," the officer clarified, guiding her wrists behind her back for handcuffs. A small crowd had gathered now, neighbors drawn by the flashing lights. Whispers rippled through them, some recording the scene on their phones. Karen's protests grew louder, more frantic, but they were drowned out by the collective murmur of relief. As the patrol car door shut behind her, Maya felt a knot in her chest loosen. For the first time since that afternoon in the store, she could breathe without the weight of Karen's shadow pressing against her. The HOA board convened an emergency session the next week. Without Karen's presence, she was barred from attending pending the outcome of her charges. The tone was different. Constructive. Cooperative. Neighbors spoke freely, no longer worried about their words being weaponized. Maya attended, sitting quietly in the back. She wasn't there for revenge. She was there to see if the neighborhood could be better without fear. When the meeting adjourned, Sam approached her. "We're revising the bylaws," he said. "No more loopholes for personal power trips. And thank you. You stood your ground." Maya smiled faintly. "I just wanted to live in peace." Weeks later, the biscotti aisle at Fairway Grocery felt quieter, calmer. Customers greeted her warmly, some recognizing her from the viral video, others simply happy to see her. And somewhere in Maplewood Estates, Karen Delaney was learning that when you treat your community like a kingdom, the fall from the throne can be a long way down.